Welcome to the Financial Dad Podcast. This is Gus
and JC,
and we appreciate you guys being here. Today we're going to hit on a financial product. I call it a financial product, but I like to use the word tools. I keep using the word tools. If no tools are off the table, then basically it becomes just a choice about whether or not you use that. And today we're going to talk about credit cards.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So credit cards, you have to really acknowledge that credit cards are bank credit. They're giving you money hoping that you abuse it. That's what they're doing. The majority of the time people are using credit cards for stuff that they don't need. And I've done it. I've got some extreme horror stories whenever it comes to credit cards. I've been there. I've done it. I still use credit cards, but I've also acknowledged that certain things about credit cards.
What's the number one thing people should know when deciding which one to use? Like what bank, what benefits this one has? Well,
if you are going to use credit card, it depends on if you're on the come up or if you are. So like if you're intro to a credit card, you more than likely, depends on if you've had financial mistakes, you're going to have to do a credit card where you deposit funds into that bank. So let's just say you had a $500 credit card.
Okay.
You may have to deposit a couple $100 with that bank and keep it there for a year, and they might give you $500. And so there's that kind of credit card. So that's called a secured credit card.
Okay.
And a lot of people have to use those who have made financial mistakes or have bankruptcies or have low credit.
Okay. What about someone my age who's never had one and is just trying to decide which one they should use?
Well, you got lucky because when you were 16, I added you to my credit card without you knowing it.
Okay.
And so the purpose of that is to build your credit up.
Is that something you recommend for a lot of parents to do for their kids? Every
parent should do that.
Okay.
The reason being is because people, hitting on credit a little bit, there's a lot of financial people out there that say, oh, well, you don't need a credit score, you don't need this, you don't need that. The only people that are preaching that are the people who are going to make an extreme amount of money off of you not having a good credit score. So if you think about it, like that.
So like going into a bank to get a loan and then your interest rates are higher because you have no proof that you have interest.
You have no proof that you have credit.
Yeah.
And so if you roll into a bank and you need to borrow money on something that you have to have, you want to put yourself in the best position that you can to be able to borrow money. And so really the only way for a person that is 16 to do that is to have a credit score.
Okay.
And all a credit score is basically your ability to pay back money. That's all it is. So there's several factors, and going to like creditkarma.com, you can start an account and it will tell you what your credit score is within reason. I mean, it could be 5-10% one way or the other, good or bad, like up or down. So like if it's 700, it could be 750, or it could be 650.
Okay.
But if you're going to borrow money ever, you have to have a credit score. And so you don't. So I have always.
Credit card the best way to build your credit score?
Yes, because it's the easiest way for. Okay, so like if I wanted you to have a good credit score whenever you turned 18 or whatever, how else do I do that and put you on something to that you don't know about, that you cannot abuse? Was my credit card. And so I just added you as a user, and you had a credit card, but you didn't know it because and then
kept it a secret.
That's right. And so when you turned 18, even before, I mean, you've got a 750 credit score, and you don't even know it. And so that's one thing as a parent that I can do to help you.
Okay.
Now, what you do at that point in time to destroy it, that's on you. And so how people destroy their credit is by abusing credit cards. And so credit cards are a great tool if you understand how they work. And so, number one, the reason why you're even able to get a good credit card with a decent amount of chargeable limit is because you have good history. But I know people who have built businesses on credit cards. They may not have done it their whole career, but they did start their business with credit cards. But there are more stories where people, I have.
So it can absolutely
examples.
hurt you, but help you at the same time if you know how to use it right.
Yes, but that's everything. That's every financial tool.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at credit cards as a financial tool and you are educated enough on how to use them and not abuse them, then they're a tool. And again, every financial product
Mm-hmm.
is on the table. And so decide what is the best tool for you to accomplish your financial goals, and then do that for a long period of time is what sets people apart. Doing it for 6 months or doing it for a year and then getting anxious about it or upset about something or frustrated with something is where people get hurt.
Because you're not creating a habit.
Well, not just because you're not creating a habit, but if you look at the world as like there is a finite amount of money
Mm-hmm.
in the world, which there's not because of...
They don't just print a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they do, but not.
No, they do.
Yeah.
So that's why inflation is so high, but that's a whole nother episode. But let's just say that if let's pretend... Okay, so on this table,
Mm-hmm.
let's pretend that there is $20 on this table.
Okay.
Okay, that's all we got is $20.
Okay.
And 10 of it's mine and 10 of it's yours.
Okay.
How do you expand your money that you have?
Go to the printer.
You have to sell me something for $1 for you to get $11.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you have to have something of value that I want in order for you to get $11.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. That's how our economic system is supposed to work. But it doesn't really work that way, but we'll keep this simple in regards to credit cards.
There's nothing we can do about that.
Well, you can keep more of your money by not paying interest. So that's where credit cards hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And so a credit card is not an extension of the amount of money that you make.
Mm-hmm.
And I like round numbers. So let's say $100,000.
Okay.
You make $100,000 a year. Let's forget about taxes.
Okay.
So you're bringing home basically $8,000 a month. Okay. So if you use credit cards, and let's say you've got a credit card with a $10,000 limit, people really believe that they have $110,000. They really believe that because nobody has ever told them that they didn't.
So the first step to a credit card is put yourself in the right mindset.
Well, you have to be educated enough, and becoming educated is easy. You can go on YouTube right now and watch 5 videos and be smarter.
That's why people are listening to us.
Yeah. Well, you can go on YouTube and learn everything that you need to know about credit cards
Mm-hmm.
in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one reason why people don't do that. They don't want to know. Or they have screwed up so much they're afraid to know.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's the main reason. Or no, like for you, if nobody ever told you not to use credit cards, I promise you that you would already be in credit card debt. I promise you that. You would already be.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, that's like one of my friends. During Christmas, I think she racked up about $500 in debt.
That's right.
Credit card that she's still trying to pay off, and
That's
it's
right.
paying bare minimum.
That's right. And the bare minimum, you will never pay it off. Not in your lifetime. You will never, because what's going to happen?
Well, because the 500 turns into 600, that turns into 800.
And do you think that she has stopped charging on it?
No.
Exactly. So 6 months from now, she's still going to be paying off what she charged at Christmas. Because once you keep charging, how do you even know what you're paying off anymore? You have no idea. So that's how banks win. And I love banks. I have, so the horror stories behind it all is I use banks all the time. I have credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
I have loans. I have rental property. I have commercial rental property. I have, but there was a time.
So you've learned to use the bank to your advantage now.
Well, it's using a bank's money is a good thing if you know how to do it. But a bank's money is not credit card money.
Mm-hmm.
Because the interest, if you look at the interest on a credit card, it can be 25, 28%. And so when you look at that, but people look at monthly payments too much. That's the problem with credit cards.
What do you mean?
So if you said that your friend who had a credit card was paying the minimum monthly payment, basically she's paying interest. She's just paying the interest.
She's not even paying what
She's
she
not
actually...
even hitting the principal. So what was the cost of those Christmas presents by the time she ended up paying it off? That probably the presents that she bought, nobody even gives a shit about now. They don't even care. So if you charge $500 and it takes you a year to pay it off, what was it? You can calculate the interest on that. What did she pay for those Christmas? And now it's Christmas again.
She's still paying off last Christmas presents.
Now she's charging again because she has spent 28% interest on all of this as well. So the mistake that people make is deciding that credit cards are an extension of the money that they make. That's a problem. And so that's the same thing with school loans. That's the same thing with credit cards. It's the same thing with any debt. But today's episode we'll focus in on credit cards. And so I think that where people make mistakes it's a psychological thing too. It's a hugely psychological. People, the majority, I think there's some statistic that says that the majority of what people buy, there's a euphoric thing about charging on a credit card. It's euphoric. Euphoric,
like a dopamine hit?
Yes.
Okay.
Because there is power to. So I'll tell you my story.
Okay.
So when I went to college, when I went to college, I'm from a small town. Never saved
Kinston,
money.
North Carolina.
Yeah, never saved money. Didn't really,
K-Town.
Had as much as what I needed. But whenever I went to NC State, I was on the Brickyard. I remember like it was yesterday. I was on the Brickyard. They're doing $500 credit cards. You think they had ugly people out there giving out $500 credit cards? No, they had towels and frisbees and cups and shirts, cool stuff that I had never seen.
It's like now,
before.
if you get a credit card recommendation, whatever you want to call it, they're like, we'll give you $200 if you sign up for this credit card.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just like your credit score is so good, I probably get at least 10 credit card offers a month in the mail for you.
That's
at
insane.
least. And I shred them.
I don't see a single one of them.
No. Well, the problem is that nobody is taking those away or teaching people about those. So in comes abuse.
And in stores, you'll get big discounts if you
That's right.
buy the credit card for that store.
On already inflated priced stuff. So, but going back to my story. So my first credit card that I ever had, it was some Discover card. It was a $500 credit card. So as soon as I got that card, I remember looking at it, and what is the very first thing that I did? I went to Abercrombie & Fitch, and I spent all $500 on stuff that I thought was so important. It was so important, I had to have it. And it took me, I don't know. I remember that I had to come home for the summer to make enough money. So this was charged in January. I was making the minimum payment. And
just paying interest again.
Just paying interest. I had to come home and work over the summer to pay off what that had grown to some $700. I think it was like some $800 bill in that short amount of time. Plus, once you make the minimum payment, then you just charge again. So I don't even know. And so that ballooned. And so in a 10-year time span, because I had looked after my credit, because I did understand how important credit was.
How did you come to that conclusion?
I took a class in college by a guy. It was Dr. Huggard. It was a personal finance class. I listened to about half of what he said. The number one thing that he said was don't use credit cards, and I did not listen to that. So, but in a 10-year time span, that credit card had grown from a $500 limit to a $60,000 limit. $60,000.
That's insane.
I was 28 years old, and that was not the only credit card I had. So by then I was married. I had a child. I convinced myself, she's sitting right here. I had a child that I convinced myself that I had to provide, and a wife. I had to provide, a super nice house, 2 cars, a lawnmower, a dog. I had convinced myself, and I was on the come up. I'm still on the come up. But then I was fortunate enough that I did not have any school debt. But I was not smart enough to understand that I needed to go work smarter instead of sitting down. What I did is I sat down with pen and paper and I came up with a figure of $7,000 a month. That's what it took to minimally fund my family. And this was 2007.
And that's a suggestion you would give to everyone.
Well, let me finish this. So I came up with a budget of $7,000. This is how bad it got, how dumb I got. I was writing myself $7,000 checks off of a credit card.
How do you write yourself a check off a credit card?
Because they'll send you checks. Your credit card company will send you checks to write off of the credit card that you can deposit into your bank. That's crazy, right?
So you're using your line of credit to then put...
I was using a credit card.
Yeah, but
it's not
still
the same thing. Okay. So a line of credit is different.
Okay.
But
so you're using whatever credit you have in your credit card to write yourself checks that would then go put in your checking account.
That's right. And I would live off of that, convincing myself that I would make enough money in that month to pay off that $7,000.
Did you?
No.
So then it's just building up.
The interest and the charges. Because what happens so I've always been commission based since the day I graduated since I started my first job, commission based. So instead of me going out and really busting ass and getting a second job or even focusing on my profession and what I was doing or finding a mentor, I basically servituded myself to working to pay off a credit card for the pats on the back of other people. That was my mistake.
Because you liked how they saw what you were doing.
It was a lie.
Okay.
I was living a lie in regards to how I was doing. I did not want. This is what men do.
So the number one thing you can do is first not care what other people think.
That is the putting yourself first and having the ability to say no. And I call it like a sense of urgency. You'll hear like Patrick Bet-David talk a lot about you have to have a crazy sense of urgency.
Even if it's not that urgent.
Well, I had that sense of urgency, but not on education. I wanted to be from point A to point B financially in my presentation or right then. So the easiest...
And that hurt you?
Oh, it killed me. It was terrible. I came, so in 2000, the stress of it all was, I can look back at pictures of from 2007, 2008. The stress of it all changed me. Instead of life being enjoyable and enjoying my child and enjoying me not knowing what I don't know. See, I'm talking to you about things I know. I don't believe that the stress of abusing credit cards allowed me to enjoy the things I didn't know yet.
Because you were worried about what you had to pay.
I thought somebody was coming after me. Who
did you think was going to come get you?
I lost everything. And I can't speak for everybody, but in that time frame of 2008, 9, and 10, you're listening to the news. The economy is busted. The housing industry, everything is just getting terrible, and you believe that, and it's not really true. But I lost my car. I came 2 seconds from I just basically just washed my hands of it. I walked away from it. I mean, it's a hard thing to admit, but I think that I walked away from that credit card. I just stopped. I gave up.
Stopped paying it?
Stopped paying it.
And what did that do?
It would destroy my credit. And I came 2 seconds from declaring bankruptcy. And I always told people this story, and maybe it made me feel better. It was, I went 13 months and didn't make a house payment. 13 months in the house that we lived in. If the economy had not have been where it was at the time, where banks were willing to work with people in regards to, they couldn't kick people out of their homes because there was so many people in financial peril. So the issue is I lied to myself. I convinced myself that I told people, well, it was either I had to make a choice about paying for you and your sister or paying a house payment, which was a lie. I just didn't want to work.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I didn't want to work. I didn't have anybody tell me, hey dude, you need to go bust ass and you need to work smarter and harder and take the punches.
So how did you turn all of that around?
I had to look in the mirror. I just decided at that point in time, I educated myself because, again, I was in the financial field, or I am. I had to take a strong look at myself in 2009-10 and say, I learned what credit cards were, but I already knew. I just didn't want to face it. And so...
So the first step is telling yourself to stop.
It's an ego and pride thing. And for me, it was ego and pride. But I was forced. So I didn't have a choice. So, and what I mean by that is in 2000, I think it was like 2010, 11, so they came and got my car. So I had my car repossessed.
So they repossessed it.
Yes.
Okay.
They showed up at my door, and I was so sick of
car.
I knew the guy. He showed up at my house, took my car. I started getting letters from the bank in regards to the house, and I didn't care. I was just in a mood about it, and I was tired, and I was fed up with myself. And I just wasn't ready to admit that until, probably around 2010, 11. And so I probably went through like a 2 to 3 year window where it was maybe not that long, but it was at least 2 years where I was just like, I deserve to have this break. And that's just not the truth. But I think when you ask me what changed my mind was I just decided that I had to do something.
So you have to have the realization to change.
Well, you have to admit to yourself that what you did was dumb and that you can't do it anymore. And there is no winning at all when you live that way.
Because you're not changing. You're not getting better.
No. And you're destroying lives because eventually it's cool when your kids are 4. But what happens when they're 19 and you're still living that way? When I decided, so you asked me a question, and I think this is probably the first time, maybe my wife knows this, but I don't think I've ever said this. So my credit card debts got up to probably $90,000.
Okay.
And I had a car I could not afford. It was a white Denali.
I remember.
Yep, $1,000 payment. Credit card payments were $1,000. I had a house that the house was not a big deal.
So your car payment's $1,000, your credit card's $1,000.
Yeah, and we're talking about 2000.
And are you using your credit card to pay for this car?
I'm using the credit card to pay for everything.
Okay.
And so I also at the time to just be transparent, I was also in a business relationship that I should not have been in. And the culmination of it all was basically left me in desperation.
Okay.
Because I think the willingness to admit where you are is the first step. So this is what I did. Unfortunately, I walked away from all the credit cards.
Okay.
Walked away from the car. I was 2 seconds
just gave it up?
Yep. I basically went to an attorney here and filed the paperwork to do a Chapter think it's 13, bankruptcy.
And what is chapter 13 is?
Well, chapter 13 lets you keep your house.
Okay.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 13 is when you have a business, correct?
No, it's everything.
Okay.
Chapter 13, there's only 2 types of bankruptcies. Well, the majority of the time. There might be others, but there's 7 and a 13. Huh?
There's 3.
Okay. So chapter 7 and chapter 13 is what I was looking at.
I just learned about them.
So I filed the paperwork for chapter 13. Mm-hmm. Something happened in that 1 week. I think maybe I had a come to Jesus meeting with myself where I called the attorney and I said, I don't want to file the paperwork. I don't want to do it. And that
was this a good or bad come to Jesus meeting?
It did not work out like I thought it was going to.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that is that the paperwork had already been filed. Mm-hmm. So here's what I did.
So you couldn't stop it?
Well, what it is that whenever you file a chapter 13, you basically reach an agreement with the state something. It's like where they compile all of your debts and they give you like a smaller, they take your house payment. Mm-hmm. They basically reach an arrangement with all of your debtors. Mm-hmm. And you pay a singular payment on a time frame like 60 months or so, and you pay that. Mm-hmm. Well, I decided I did not want to declare bankruptcy anymore. Well, unbeknownst to me, the paperwork had already been filed. When the paperwork is filed, it's just like you did declare bankruptcy.
Okay.
So
you were already to that point.
I was already to that point.
Okay.
I was done. I was mentally and physically done, which leads you to make very desperate decisions. So, or you just don't give it. You just don't care. That's where you are.
Either or.
And I will say this again, bankruptcy is a tool.
Okay.
I regret declaring bankruptcy. I don't take that off the table. Regret is foolish. Mm-hmm. I regret allowing myself to get to that point. And a lot of it was because of bad relationships, business and personal. Mm-hmm. And so as well as as a dad, I put crazy amounts of pressure on myself to provide. But everybody had enough. Mm-hmm. I just wanted more.
You wanted to do more.
I wanted to take the shortcut from 0 to 10. I wanted to go around
and not
1
take
to 9. Yeah. That's right. I didn't even know that I wanted to go around it, but I did. Mm-hmm. Or I tried and it did not work.
So how did you get out?
Okay. So in 2012, what I had to do was to rebuild everything. So number one, I did not lose the house. So I contacted the bank that held the loan on the house. Can't remember who it is now. And they redid my loan and attached.
So you got to refinance.
They refinanced it internally because that was the thing at the time. Mm-hmm. You will probably not find this again ever. Mm-hmm. But it was because the economy was so bad. Here's what they did. They refinanced the whole loan and took the interest and the principal that I owed and put it on the back end and financed it on this is just the house, and did a 40-year loan. At that time, it was like 4.5% interest. Uh-huh. I made a decision right then that I was going to do whatever it took to pay back that interest. So this was my first decision. I knew I owed that money. I looked in the mirror and said, hey, you owe the interest and the principal.
You got to pay it.
You went 13 months and you didn't make a payment. Mm-hmm. That was your stupidity. It's time to get out of your mood and go to work and work smarter and harder. Mm-hmm. And so I paid an extra payment. Like every couple months I paid like an extra, every month I paid like an extra $500 or $600 to pay that back as quickly as possible. So that was step number one.
And where did this extra $500 to $600 come from?
I worked smarter.
So you got another job.
I've never had a problem making money.
Okay, but for someone who doesn't know where to get that extra that they need to pay off something, where do they go to get that?
Well, if your primary job does not do it, then if you're, let's say you're a single person. Okay. And so everybody gets stuck on the 40-hour week with a W-2 job. So let's just say you have a W-2 job. Okay. And you have a salary. And you're working 40 hours a week. Unfortunately, you're going to have to make a decision that 40 hours a week is not the jam. That's not going to do it. There's 168 hours in a week. You put yourself in this position to live beyond what you were making.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a certain period of time, you will have to go get, if you want to get out of it with haste and not live a lesser life, meaning take the money out of your current income to go pay back that debt,
Mm-hmm.
which may take away from your ability to live your normal life.
So the choice is go get a second job or take away from what you're currently doing.
Yes.
Stop doing certain things to pay it off.
That's right.
Okay.
So you have to have a man in the mirror meeting. And so you have to admit where you are, say you're sorry, apologize to yourself and let it go, and then move forward with small wins.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where a lot of people fail, and where I did not fail. I allowed myself to have small wins. I didn't look at the end goal.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the discipline of that amount of money that I paid every month. That's what I looked at, and I paid, and I paid it all off. In a matter of probably, I think, less than 16, 17 months, and put myself right back in a great position.
Mm-hmm.
But it was only because the economy was so bad at the time that this happened.
So for someone who's in this point right now, what should they do to get out?
Single?
Either or.
Okay. So your only way is, so if you're going to try to do this with the money that you make, obviously you decided that the money that you made was not enough for you to go beyond your means.
Mm-hmm.
So your job is going to be cut, and this is an ego and shot to the pride. I mean, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
This is you are having to admit defeat, and you are going to. So here's what I would do. You need to go to a trusted person, whoever that is, and you need to look at that trusted person and tell them exactly what went.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? I'm talking about every detail of what got you into that place. You're not there for suggestions. You're not there for, options.
Mm-hmm.
You're just there to look at somebody.
Tell them where you went wrong.
This burden, you need to get this burden off of you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to go look in the mirror and say, I'm going to stop doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you sit down.
Get rid of guilt.
That's right. The guilt does not matter. Guilt is self-induced.
Mm-hmm.
Guilt is also self-induced because you keep doing the same dumb stuff over and over
So
and over.
you have to stop.
Knowing that it's not the right path.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and a person feels that. A person understands in their heart when they wake up in the morning, if you're obsessing about something that you did or did not do, you know that you're on the wrong path. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt that. I knew it the whole time. I knew it. If I could not talk to if I felt shame talking to my own dad about it,
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
Especially financial. And so I felt like I knew more than what I did,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't.
So what do you do once you go to this trusted person?
Well, you're going to that trusted person to get it off of your heart,
Okay.
get it off of your mind,
Okay.
and then you have to sit down with another trusted person or that person
Mm-hmm.
and come up with a plan. There's got to be a plan. There is a negative to everything. It took me 7 years to repair my credit. 7 years. But now what's happening in this environment.
And those are the consequences.
Those are the consequences. But here's what it taught me. So I went from a couple $100,000 in credit cards to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Psychologically, that messed with my mind for about 6 months because I had been dealing with credit for so long. I didn't know how to live without credit. That was crazy. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that it
So
taught
you had to
me,
get yourself out of this habit of using credit to
it made me feel
live
like
better.
the weakest person ever. After about 3 months, when I gave up the credit cards, I felt like I went through almost like a depression.
like a withdrawal.
A depression. I was like, how am I going to live without credit cards?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to survive? What if this happens? What if this happens? Mm-hmm. And that is whenever I got control of my fear. That is whenever I really understood that nothing happened. Mm-hmm. Nothing. It was self-induced news, media, propaganda that you have to have credit cards mm-hmm. and credit to live.
But you don't. So how do you get to this point once you're sitting down with this other trusted person? What are you writing down? What do you do?
The plan to get back in the driver's seat. What is your plan to get back in the driver's seat financially?
Mm-hmm. And what is the best plan?
Well, if you didn't have the wherewithal to develop that plan beforehand, how are you going to develop that plan then? And you're not. Mm-hmm. You might know what to do, like numbers like zeros and ones, mm-hmm. but you don't know the plan to make it happen. So the only plan forward could be make more money. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be forever. It could just be a plan. Hey, make an extra $300. And it's all relative to the person's debts. Mm-hmm. But the goal is to get those debts paid off.
Because then you can use that extra job, whether it be waitressing, whatever you have to go and do, to pay off your debts.
Well, the easiest way to pay off debts is with sales. So I feel like that every guy in America says, okay, well, let's go landscape. Mm-hmm. Let's go personal train. Let's go bartend. Let's go do these things because nobody told them that they don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. And every girl's answer is, well, let's go waitress. Let's go work at a restaurant.
Immediately.
That's like the go-to things. But the easiest way to go make money and make the most amount of money in a given time is in sales. Mm-hmm. And
you always want to find a job where you're making the most money for your amount of time.
Well, you have to bring value to the system to make money. If mm-hmm. you have no value, then you have not put yourself in a position to learn how to bring value, which takes time, mm-hmm. then you're not going to make any money. The cool thing about what I learned is this. Mm-hmm. I learned that I did not need credit cards to live. I don't need credit cards now. Mm-hmm. But that's because I have constructed a plan of contingency plans. I think that's the greatest thing about financials is you have to have a plan. Mm-hmm. Not having a plan is having a plan. So you're planning to fail.
If you don't have a plan.
If you don't have a plan, that is a plan. You're literally planning to fail.
There is no plan.
if you don't have a plan. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like this. In today's world. Mm-hmm. So you have the money that you make in your job. Let's say that you're a dad and you're married and you have a home. Okay. So you need a plan of what ifs. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? Mm-hmm. You should
not a ridiculous amount of what ifs.
No. Just very simple 3 or 4 what ifs.
Okay.
If you take those what ifs off the table, then that's a huge amount of pressure off of a family about those what ifs. Okay. A lot of that can be done with like insurance, or finances or something.
Things to back you up.
Yeah, things to back you up that take an extreme amount of pressure off of your inability to I don't know, plan for the unforeseen events that could happen in your life. Mm-hmm. So you asked me again, like, what did I do? I would say that the number one thing that people can do with credit cards so a lot of people say, oh, just tear up credit cards. People are not going to do that.
No, they'll just buy another one.
Because they
not buy another one, but get another one. You know what I mean?
Well, I think going through a season of not using credit cards mm-hmm. and taking them away from yourself, destroying your credit cards and calling and canceling is probably the dumbest thing that you can do, because canceling a credit card actually makes your credit worse, because now you just have the debt.
And why is that?
Well, because now you just still owe the debt.
Okay.
Just because you cut up a credit card doesn't mean that you get rid of it. So the debt is still out there. Mm-hmm. So the goal would be to...
Now, what if you're paying that debt and you cut up the credit card just to take it away from yourself?
That's just because you're mad.
Okay.
So cutting up the credit card is not some great thing, because that's an emotional statement to yourself. Oh, I'm cutting off this thing that I'm never going to use again. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks later, you're ordering the credit card again. So you're not being truthful with yourself. Mm-hmm. The truthful comes from going to that trusted friend and saying, hey, I fucked up. Mm-hmm. This is where I am. I'm 100% transparent with you right now. This is where I am. Can you help me if that person is also the person that's going to help you come up with the plan? Can you help me come up with a plan that helps me pay this debt back?
Mm-hmm.
And then follow that plan until the debt is done. And then you have
And you have to be
lesson.
disciplined enough to follow that plan through.
The plan.
Yeah.
Failing yourself, you have to get to the point where failing yourself is not an option. Too many people are okay with failing themselves.
Because they give themselves too many options.
It's because they don't tell anybody the plan. There's no accountability.
Mm-hmm.
If you told me your plan
Mm-hmm.
and you were truthful about your plan, let's say you wanted to buy a car.
Okay.
You came to me and said, hey, I really want to buy a car in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And let's come up with a plan to buy that car.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell you the plan. And then there was an accountability every month on what the plan was. Well, if you did that, then there's a plan.
Yeah.
But if you didn't,
and there's someone to hold you accountable.
That's right. And it has to work. It's a reciprocal relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I have to tell you a plan that I'm working on, and we hold each other accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that too many parents. So going back to parents, nobody ever talked to me about credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever talked to me about checking accounts or debit cards or cash. Nobody ever talked to me. Nobody ever said, well, you need to live within your means.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever said that to me. So I think that the only reason why parents are not teaching their children about the financial tools is because they don't know them. That's about as truthful of a statement that I can say. They don't know, and they are not living.
But you can't just go your whole life and say, I don't know, I never want to find that out. Or
People can, and they do.
Yeah, but it won't get them in
my
any
practice.
good point.
I meet with just as many desperate 65 to 75-year-olds as I do 30-year-olds. It's the craziest thing. But I think it's because people are not honest with themselves
Mm-hmm.
about, and they're also trying to, you hear the word keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping up with the Joneses is a thing, but it's really just trying to get the pats on the back from other people. That's really all it is.
Mm-hmm. So you have to take away your care for what people think first.
Well, yes, you have to acknowledge where you are and what your goals are, and put it on paper. It's boring. It is so boring, and it is so simple to be financially savvy, but there's so much information out there about what you should or should not do. There's like hard no's.
And the human brain automatically wants to overcomplicate everything.
Well, you have to treat the world like this. Everybody's trying to get in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And once you admit that to yourself, that everybody, when you step outside of your door, even when you're in your home,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's trying. The only time somebody's not trying to get in your pocket is when you're asleep. That's it.
Well, even then, they might still try to. The little
They're
hackers
still-
on
they're- well,
the
they're-
internet.
Yeah, well, they're still getting in your pocket, especially because the credit cards. Credit cards are 24 hours a day. Debts are 24
There's
hours a day.
subscriptions. There's
Everybody's
everything.
trying to get money at all times. Okay, so today's episode was on credit cards and my failures and how to overcome credit card debt and the things you should and shouldn't do. And so today we talked about what is a credit card. I talked about my horror stories whenever it comes to credit cards. And just remember this, when the economy is great, it used to be when the economy was great, credit is free, meaning there will be credit card offers, loan offers, payday, advance. Everybody's giving away credit. But there will be an interest charged on that.
They want you to fail.
That's right. They want you to owe. They want you to be in servitude. Servitude is, and this gets a lot of people all twisted up, interest is the new slave master, and it does not know color. It is the new slave master for all people. Credit cards are not an extension of the money that you make. It's a tool. And if all tools are on the table, then you should learn how to use that tool. And then you should also become aware of the interest that you're paying on floating a debt on a credit card.
It's not just $500.
No, it's not. It's that 500 becomes 700 super quick. So I want to thank you guys for being a part of the episode today, and I look forward to the next one. If you have a like or a comment or just some questions on something that we should talk about next time, leave it in the comments. And
we're always open to suggestions.
That's right. So thank you guys. Look forward to it.
Thank y'all.